stuff to give out.
Yeah. The Germans and the Swedes and all those guys, the Finns, the Norwegians.
So once you make it to the Bernie Sanders
of Europe, for sure.
Socialist utopian territories.
Yep.
Right. So what is their mood
in the Middle East that have documents signed by Muhammad himself? We know Islam as Eastern Christians better than most. And I would say there are some scholars in the Orthodox Church that deal with this because it is fundamentally a culture that is stuck in the Middle Ages.
Which culture are you referring to? Because there are definitely, I'll say, enlightened Muslims that are not part of this mindset, that are not engaged in, nor do they think it's cool to go out. As a matter of fact, what you don't hear in the news is examples of Muslims that actually came to the aid of folks that were being molested by other Muslims.
But within the culture, the enlightened Muslims are the minority. You can look at the United States when it was created, and the average guy in the United States was extremely well educated.
Extremely well educated.
Was very well educated.
Also referred to as shekin.
Yeah, shekin.
Yes.
So the average American could read and write and read the newspaper and went to school, and that's the case today too. Regardless of the perception of the dumbing down of America, everyone in America, 90% of the population here can read and write. 60% of the migrants going from the Middle East to Europe are illiterate. Completely and utterly illiterate. This isn't the cream of the crop. These aren't the butchers, the bakers, the candlestick makers. These are the people who were dependent on the state in the Middle East.
So they're used to getting a handout.
Oh, without
and they
question.
Expect it where they're going.
Without question. And they were getting handouts that were divvied up through their mosques primarily. This because the state ran through the mosques.
And then there's another issue, which I watched a very interesting documentary on what's going on in Germany with the immigrants and the rise of the anti-immigrant movements, and how the workers who are helping the immigrants, how they feel. And there's some mixed emotion, even among the workers, even among the people that want to help the immigrants. And one of the most interesting things that came up in this was among the immigrants that have truly come here.
We got to stop calling them immigrants. These are refugees.
Refugees, okay.
And there's a big difference. I'm an immigrant. We put in our papers, got on a 747 and flew to the United States back in the day.
Among the folks that are coming in, whatever you want to call them,
the refugees.
Among the folks, there is a large number of people who have this idea. This is from the documentary, that they have this idea that Germany needs them, and they want to help Germany. They want to help build Germany. They want to be a part of it. They want to be useful. They want to be productive.
They can't.
Well, let me finish.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're exactly right. What they're moving into is a place that really doesn't need them. So on one hand, you have the people who are there for a handout. They're not going to get what they expect. On the other hand, you have people who are really there to do something who aren't going to have anything to do.
They don't have the skill sets to help.
No,
the
I don't
Germans
mean,
need...
even among the people who do have skill sets.
65,
there's nothing there.
65% of the people going are illiterate. Germany is an advanced economy.
I am talking about the folks that are more educated, that have that immigrant mentality. Even for those folks, they're in for a huge disappointment. And what's going to happen even to those folks? Because what's happening in Germany, you have these Muslim communities that have been there for a long time.
Ghettos?
No, they're not ghettos.
Yeah, they are.
Some of these communities are doing quite well. Some of these communities are doing very well. These Muslim communities are looking at these folks coming in, and they're saying, not in our neighborhood, stay the hell out. We only have so many resources. We don't have any room for you. Not even the Muslims who are there already, who have been there first, second, third generation Muslims in Germany, want the immigrants there because they're looking at them as they're gonna get part of my stuff. So it's
There's
ugly.
more
It's
to it.
ugly what they're
But there's,
creating.
it's not, that is part of it for sure. But the other part of it is that the Turks can't stand the Syrians. The Syrians detest the Iraqis. The Iraqis look down at the Persians. The Persians look at Afghanis as dogs.
Yeah, they're bringing their partisanship with them.
Yeah, so you have these cliques, these nationalist cliques
Partisan cliques, partisan
from
factions.
whatever part of
Partisan
the world.
factions is better.
The Saudis look at Sudanese as subhuman. So when you, just because you're throwing all these young men into a mix and say, well, they're all Muslims.
Yeah.
That's like saying a Greek's the same as a German's the same as a Spaniard, a Spaniard's the same as a Norwegian.
Well, they're Europeans.
Yeah, they're all Norwegians are exactly the same as a Russian, and they're all Christians. They'll get along. They'll figure it out. You know, Northern Irish, Southern Irish, or
Yeah, Catholic,
what,
Protestants, Eastern Orthodox, they all get
Shiite,
along.
Sunni.
Whatever, they all get
Would you
along.
just throw them in these
I mean, look at history. They've always
enclaves?
gotten along.
Just throw all these Muslims in the enclaves, and they'll work it out. They're not. They're not going to work it out any better than you're going to have a community of hardcore nationalist Brits with hardcore nationalist Irish. You're asking for trouble. And this is the dynamic that's being set up there. And not only is that dynamic existing, Germany needs skilled technicians, programmers. They need people who can read and write. They need machinists. They need craftsmen. The people that are coming there are not that.
So what you have is another example where government, using its coercive power, because these people are brought there, well, the government's paying for them to get there. The government is forcing you to accept them. I mean, Germany has laws preventing you from even saying anything bad about the refugees. They're manipulating the marketplace. They are creating an artificial demand that doesn't exist. If you see this, if there was no government involved, if nobody was helping these folks move on over, you would not see the dependents coming over. You would not see the low wage people. They wouldn't be able to afford to get here in the first place. What you would see is the people who actually saw, if I come over here, I can actually make a living and I can do well for myself. Those would be the people that you would need would end up showing up in a free market.
I have a theory about
Free
that.
market movement.
I think, I mean, you joked at it earlier about
I never joke.
see these immigrants, they wreck the system.
They wreck the banks.
They're there to fix the banks. Because what's happening in Germany is there is a population, there's population stagnation in Europe. And those poorhouses that used to be bought and sold and floated a certain part of the marketplace are not being filled anymore. So they need someone to come in to buy all that crap and start to fill that part of the niche as they move up through the social strata and the economic strata, so that the group that's on the bottom can move to the top, to the middle, and from the middle to the top. It keeps the cash flow, which is something that we have a problem with here. There is a gluttony of real estate here in the United States, and it's the same thing in Europe. There are more properties than there are people to buy them. So if you can get these people in with some resources to start buying up the low end of the market, that'll float the middle part of the market, which will float the top part of the market eventually. They are desperate to salvage their economies in Europe. They know what's happening in Greece is
but they're creating such instability.
Well, that's intentional as well. Because you'd rather your population be targeting the foreigner than you as a politician, because you're the real problem.
It's a gamble.
It's a huge
very
gamble
good chance
that it's going to backfire.
that they're actually going to turn on you.
Who's
They're going
they?
to the Germans are going to turn on Merkel.
Oh, they are already
Well,
turning on her.
maybe 20-30% of the country. It's not like an overwhelming majority of the country yet, but those 20-30% are blood shooting out of their eyes, angry, like on the edge of doing some violent
Well,
stuff.
they are doing violence all over Europe. They're
I meant,
burning
okay,
camps
well,
down.
they are,
They're
but I mean on a larger scale, a more direct, large scale, where you can actually see insurgencies in Germany, where Germans are committing acts of terror against German
Oh,
government.
so you're talking about what was the name? The Red Army, the Germans back in the 50s and
Oh,
60s and
the late '60s, early
yeah, where
'70s, yeah,
the assassinations of German politicians. Is that
yeah,
what you're talking about?
yeah, that kind of stuff.
Well, I see this as at a level pre-World War One. I see what's happening in Europe more in line with what was happening around the world pre-World War One, and something's going to kick off, and then this country's going to go against that country, and that country's going to join this country, and you're going to have alliances, and yeah, I don't see good things coming from this. And I know I sound vague, but there are so many things going on in Eastern Europe and Central Europe eh, with these migrants, refugees, um, and it's intentional. This is orchestrated, completely orchestrated, and it is a big gamble. But what's the alternative? Let the opposition win? Let the Marxists in to wreck the whole thing once and for all? Because that's what's going to happen. As the Germans start waking up to the reality of what their government has been doing for the last 50 years, it, it it's exactly what the American government's been doing. It's been bleeding the wealth of the country dry. And there's a ruling elite that populates the banks and the financial institutions that are bleeding the United States dry just like they're bleeding Europe dry. And the true wealth isn't staying with the people, it's going to the top. It's not capitalism at all. It's a form of
I don't know
mercantilism.
when we've had capitalism. It's
Yeah, the
actually
late.
I really like I hear I think Jeffrey Tucker, one of my favorite libertarians. He is really insistent on calling it fascism, not
In the
mercantilism.
classical sense, not in the.
Not in everybody thinks fascism, and every time I say fascism, I always feel like I have to explain
You
myself
have to, because everyone
because I'm
thinks
not
of
thinking
Adolf Hitler.
bootlicking and Mussolini marching down the street. I'm talking about fascism where you have the state and the corporation are one. The state doesn't own the corporation, but the state directs the corporation. It directs the leadership of the
But that's National
corporations.
Socialism.
No, no, National Socialism, the state owns everything. Corporations are owned by families. They take individual wealth from those corporations, huge amounts of individual wealth. In the socialist system, it doesn't work like that. The socialist system, there's no individual ownership. In fascism, there is individual ownership, and the way that the state, what 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 we've done in America, for instance, our American fascism, and I don't know enough about Europe. You know more about it than me. You could tell me if it's the case. I bet you it is. What we've done in America is Hitler's. I mean, Hitler's a national socialist, but he was more fascistic in how he ran his economy, although it was very socialist at its end. But Hitler didn't take over the businesses, but he did have a plan to do it eventually. But during his reign, he just gave the owners orders. He told the owners what price you could set, what you were going to make, how much you were going to make, but he didn't take away the owner's stuff, and he didn't take away the owner's individual wealth. What we've done in America is we don't have like a separate state entity giving orders to the corporate entity. What we have is families that run both. They're all the state and the corporation are one. The state doesn't own the corporation. You could say the corporation owns the state. I'm not sure who owns who, but what they figured out is these families, on any family, on a powerful family, your family members are all on boards of the highest, the top five, Fortune 500 companies. They're on boards. They're leading in the military industrial
Complex.
not just the defense. They're on the defense
Defense
boards.
industry.
They're on the
Tech.
industrial industry. They're in tech. They're in the media. You have family members that rule in all of these key areas, including government. So what we have now is we have these very wealthy, powerful family units that the line between the government and the corporation is blurred. It's blurred so much that the government can easily direct the corporation because the government is Uncle Sal and the corporation is Aunt Susie. I don't know if I'm imagining it's the same in Europe.
Oh, absolutely. And the media, it's more blatant in Europe, the control of the media by these families. It's off
So
the hook.
we,
The media tells the story of
let me
whatever.
interrupt you real quick and then I'll
Yeah.
let you go. We have about almost 3 minutes, a little bit under 3 minutes left. So this is your last.
Hurrah.
You're going to close out this segment and then we'll say goodbye.
Look at the media in the United States and who controls it and who controls the story. And that's where the internet is so powerful because you have real alternatives, not the fake alternatives like Fox News. Fox News is a liberal's idea of what a conservative talk show news program should be.
You're right.
And when I look at it, the substance is very weak. The reasoning is anemic, and the articles that are chosen to be discussed are asinine. Why on earth would anybody expect real news from Fox? You're getting whatever liberal, whomever owns Fox News is definitely not a conservative, and they're dictating the news for you. And it's not just Fox, it's all of the major news sources in the United States and the major media outlets. That is why the internet is so important, because you can get a real story out there. And you see the real stories. Even the Germans are going online and reading in the BBC what's going on in Germany. When I'm in Greece visiting family, I can watch CNN, I can watch Fox, I can read the Economist newspaper. I don't have to look at the local sources to see what's going on in Greece. I can get articles written about Greece in China or Russia or Egypt or Sudan. And some of the sources that I come across for things that I'm interested in, like, why on earth is there someone in Bangladesh writing about this thing? It's got nothing to do with them, about Russia expanding its control of the Arctic. And yet, it's a very good article with really good information. The internet is critical to the advancement of civilization. And these webs that we were talking about earlier, the mesh nets, oh my God, that gives me hope for the future.
Yep. And on that note, we are going to say goodbye. Next week, we'll be back. We don't know what we'll do, and we are working on, toward the end of February, we're going to have an interesting show about the top trending stories of 2015 and what was going on while those trending stories were going on. And on that note, I am Paul.
And I am Dimitri.
And we are State of Wake, and we are going to go ahead and leave you with...
we are going to say good night.
A reminder of why you should listen or not listen to this show. Farewell and good night.
Are you sick and tired of all that liberty? Does the freedom to collect rainwater and use it as you please seem like way too much liberty for you? Have you been burdened with the choice to buy a gun and carry a gun wherever you want? Did your child run a snow removal business in the neighborhood without getting a government license? And that type of freedom sickens you? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then we have a show for you not to listen to. State of Wake at stateofwake.com is not the show for people who are sick of the burden of freedom and liberty. If you actually love freedom, and you're ready to face how much freedom you actually have under Daddy Gov, then State of Wake is the show for you. So, if you hate liberty, stay the bleep away from stateofwake.com. For everyone else, Come in, the water's warm.